first of all, you may be hesitant to even start. Second of all, you may do things wrong at the beginning and you may leave a week in. I want to handhold you through the process until you're actually confident.
He's the CEO of Capital.com.
Also quite a media persona.
Tarik Chebib.
It's their first time in financial services, first time for an international firm, first time a manager. There's so many firsts that people don't have the experience yet in this region. You really have to localize and you have to understand how the market works here to be able to win here.
How do you instill that in a team and then, a scaled company as well?
It's super hard. I want an environment where everyone is trying to push, and let them fail is not a problem. If you fail 9 times and the 10th thing works out, especially in financial services, the upside is so huge.
What would you say to somebody who actually wants to become, number one in the industry?
It can't just be...
So before we begin with today's conversation, a word from us at Open Equity. You're probably watching this because you're looking to scale and exit or IPO your company successfully. Well, we have a wealth of resources that are designed exactly to support your success, from workshops, from free guides, from downloads and things like that. There's loads of links in the description. Now, one I want to highlight is a scorecard that we've put together that allows you to assess very easily what it is that's stopping you, what's holding you back from getting to the next level, what's holding you back from building towards that big exit that you probably desire and, of course, that you deserve. So head down below. There's a link to the scorecard. It's 20 or so questions. It takes about a minute to do, and you output a custom report that's designed to support you and give you some practical and actionable insights that you can implement right away and take things to the next level. Let's get on with the show. Tarik, thank you so much for joining me on Open Equity.
Thank you for having me.
It's really excited because as we were just talking before, I think you're a rare example of someone who's scaled a business here. There are lots of people who come here and maybe found a business and get it to a certain point, but you've come here, you've scaled a regional and market leader, and also built a great team, and also built your presence and so on. So thank you so much for joining.
I'm honored to be here.
Good. Let's jump into it. We were saying before, we're both part German, so there's no need for the small talk. Talk to me about that initial phase then. So you received the position as CEO of Capital.com. You presumably starting from scratch. How did you think about that first phase? How do you think about getting on with the task of building this brand out?
Yeah, so I've been in the region now 10 years and I've brought 3 different brokers here. So I've been at point 0 3 times. And, it always starts with regulation and trying to get the regulation, which is an 18 to 24 months kind of process. So 4 years ago, I joined the business, and at the beginning, I was more looking at global operations and trying to help, and then we really focused on the UAE at a critical time. After COVID, there was a lot of excitement in the UAE, and we had a product that was very relevant or is very relevant. A lot of commodities are being traded physically here, so a lot of people have an opinion about gold, oil, natural gas, and lots of different markets. And the same side, there's a lot of crypto excitement and indices in the US market. So being multi-asset has really helped in this volatile time. And we got the license actually only last year, and then set up an office and scaled very quickly on the people side to about 70 people in 6 months. And now we're looking to go to 150 people and build a real regional headquarters here.
Amazing. And talk to me about that initial kind of 0 to 70 point. I found you can get a great core team maybe who can kind of, the 2 pizza rule, who can kind of work. But then actually scaling up, I found 70 is also quite a kind of critical point when there's cultures that start to kind of fragment and things like that. Like talk me through that journey from kind of few people up to 70 and how you navigated that, how you thought about that.
Yeah, at the beginning, you just try to hire anyone to please
anyone who's breathing. You're just like, come and work for me.
Please the regulator.
Friends,
and
family.
Tick check boxes, yes. Yeah. And then you realize actually some people work out, some people don't work out, right? Getting it right more than 50% of the time on the hiring front is very, very difficult. Yeah. You can do as many rounds as you want. It is very difficult to know this upfront. So I've had my fair share of experience around that. And from the core team, there are some that are left, but actually a lot of them have also left the business and have moved on. So we've gone through that first recycling and making the core team stronger. And when you get to 70, I paused and I looked at the team and I looked at, all the technological developments, AI, and all the automation that can happen and the enhanced productivity. And you ask yourself, do I actually need to continue hiring or not? And that is the default, right? But that is making it very easy. And you should invest a lot more time into defining what can I automate and what can't I automate. And I'm going through that at the moment. So, yeah, it's an exciting journey. It's I think the big thing that everyone talks about here is finding good talent, right? And having been here 10 years, I can tell you it got a lot better, but we are still far behind other markets like London, New York, LA. And so getting the right kind of talent is one of the hardest things, but it has to be my number one mission, right? Because relying on recruiters, relying on people applying to you is not the right strategy. You're just not going to get A players. So about a year and a half ago, I made it my mission to try and really get out there and put myself out there and build a personal brand that helps us recruit much better talent. And now after... it took a good 6 to 9 months to build that presence, but in the last 6 months, I've been able to attract talent that otherwise would have never spoken to the brand. They don't know Capital.com, right? Capital.com is a niche brokerage, but they really want to work with me. And that was a really interesting process where people from Stanford to Singapore to Google to JP Morgan, to all sorts of people would all of a sudden reach out to us. So I really enjoyed that process, and I'm trying to, it's a unique process of how to recruit, but we are in emerging markets. There is no playbook. There is no, you have to figure it out yourself. And so yeah, that has been my challenge, and yeah.
Well, you're doing really well. I mean, I think I remember we scaled a business to about 200 or so people, mainly working in Saudi, but then some activity out here. And talent was the hardest thing by far. I mean, getting the business and getting demand and so on was one thing. Yeah. But then, you get the activity, and then, like you say, how do you find world-class talent? And we had a similar thing, but on a much smaller scale, to tell that story to talent, to say, well, you shouldn't go and work at Google or OpenAI or whatever. You should come and work on this exciting activity here. Tell me about that story. What do you say to talent in terms of the ecosystem? And there's obviously what you're up to at Capital.com, but also for a lot of people, I imagine they're moving their lives over and putting a lot of trust in it. How do you tell that story? How do you persuade people to come and join you on this mission and in this location?
Yeah. So I think Dubai has done an absolute amazing job in selling Dubai. So
that's true.
I don't have to do any of that anymore, especially since COVID.
But did you used to have to do that?
Yes.
Has that changed a lot?
It was much harder. It was much harder to convince people because they were still kind of afraid. But after COVID, that has all dropped. Everyone wants to move here. Yeah. So that is a very easy conversation. And sometimes you actually have to probe whether they just want to move to Dubai and use you as a vehicle.
Oh, I see. Or just get a visa and the EID and go.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
No, but... the real talent, they really have this kind of hesitation of having a break in their career and moving somewhere where they've been in financial services in the UK, for example, have a really good employer name, and then they're going somewhere where they're not really quite sure. And, I obviously pitch very hard and I could just be a good salesperson, right? So I approach this challenge by talking about the unique challenges that we are trying to tackle as a business, and show them that the problems that they're working on will be worth their time. And whatever happens after 2 years, they will look back and say, I actually learned a lot here. And that career, having purpose when you come to work and actually working on interesting problems is something that a lot of people crave. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. And you can be very talented, but if you work for a big organization, you're just usually a number and you don't get given real responsibility. And here I need everyone to pull their weight, right? So I can offer that, plus I can offer Dubai and fintech, and being in a well-established fintech now are all challenges that appeal to a number of people.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for sharing that. And let's talk a bit more about that, the evolution, because you mentioned, obviously, yes, Dubai has become much more popular. You've got, I guess it must be easier to get talent moving here. But how have you seen the evolution of the fintech ecosystem as a whole? Talent is one factor, but as well, companies come and go. Some companies are thinking long term, and others are maybe a little bit short term and a bit hypey and scammy and so on. But talk to me about you have a really great perspective across that whole ecosystem. Talk about how you see that ecosystem, how you've seen it evolve over the last few years, where
Yeah.
you see it going.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the UAE, we have 5 different regulators. We have the central bank, we have VARA, we have the 2 free zones, ADGM and DIFC, and we have ESCA. So we have got a lot of regulators in 150-kilometer, reach within the country. And when I came, I was in the DIFC, which is the financial center in Dubai, and 25,000 people used to work there. Now it's 50,000.
Wow.
So they have definitely done a great job in attracting a lot of companies. And it's, brokerage is just a small part, but there's a lot of hedge funds, private equity firms. Everyone is setting up shop here and is trying to cater to the region from here. So they have upskilled massively. They really want to become a top tier regulator around the world. And it is not like that they're 2-3 years behind other kind of regulators anymore. They're really pushing forward. And that is part of, FATF, we had some problems with FATF. They never want to have any problems with them anymore. So the audits that we are now receiving from the regulator are super stringent, and you really need to have your best people prepared. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, we had, I guess, in my industry, in private equity, similar thing with the barrage and everything that happened there, is it drives it back. But the regulation piece, because I think what I've found here is it's a very progressive regulatory environment, which allows you to be an innovative firm and offer something different. Have you found, that's allowed you the freedom to maybe do something different from maybe a more stagnant or stale market like in Europe or elsewhere?
Yeah, I can tell you that there's no regulator around the world that we're speaking to that is as progressive and as business friendly as here. They really try and push applications and interesting projects, right? Because, we've had Kareem, we've had Souk, and we've had a couple of global success cases. But within financial services, we still need to develop these use cases. And, all the different free zones are really tasks with getting, business-friendly environments up and running. And whether it's the metaverse or crypto or whatever is in vogue at the moment, the government really tries to create frameworks where these industries can come and flourish.
And on that point, I see in private equity, there's a lot of platforms starting to emerge that are thinking about offering PE or private markets to retail investors. Is that something that, first of all, do you see that as something that's a good thing for an offering for retail investors who maybe get access to something institutional did? How do you see that? Do you see that on your roadmap? I'm kind of curious about private markets as a product offering and how you see it in terms of what you do.
Yeah, I've personally done a bunch of angel investments, and this region is still very young when it comes to this. When I speak to retail investors, a lot of the times they have real estate portfolios, but they don't even have any stock portfolios or any other kind of exposure, right? So any kind of new asset class will take time to really get through to the right people. The massive advantage here is that people have deep pockets, right? A lot of people, for the first time, have money. They may not have all the knowledge that they need to be able to do this successfully. But the government is supplying a lot of funds. So there's a lot of funding. We just need the right people to be leading these projects and have a couple of success stories under our belt for more people to wake up to this.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think one thing that you've done really well at Capital.com is a focus on education. You kind of touched on it there. And I think it's, from what I can tell, it really helps to actually build, I assume, long-term customers as opposed to someone who maybe comes in, spends their money kind of in a gambling way versus someone who really learns to be a trader. But how do you think about that piece in terms of customer education and how that plays into what you do?
Yeah, so having been in emerging markets for 10 years, you learn very quickly that people need education, and much more than in other parts of the world. Financial literacy is something that is really important. Is pushed from the government, and for us, if I don't educate you as a client, first of all, you may be hesitant to even start. Second of all, you may do things wrong at the beginning, and you may leave a week in. right?
Yeah.
And that means I lose a lifetime of potential commissions. So I want to handhold you through the process until you're actually confident. So we have a separate app called InvestMate where you can learn a bunch of different things. We have all of our social media channels, not just in English, but also in Arabic, which is where there's no one in the competition really investing any
that's a
time.
huge differentiator.
So you get a lot of top of funnel activity where people are looking for education and then are saying, oh, they are the ones that have actually taught me. It is a very easy transition to then use you as the preferred broker as well. So we invest heavily into that, seminars, webinars, all of it, to try and educate people and not make mistakes like a lot of people have been exposed to trading crypto, trading highly volatile assets that they had no clue about what they're doing, right? And so education is dear to my heart and is very important.
Yeah. And I think you've also been really progressive in then use of social media, use of personal brand building as well. Is that something that you set out to do from the off? Did you see actually for Capital.com to scale here? That was a real opportunity and should invest in it? Is it something that kind of, you learned over time through trial and error? Or how did you think about that whole journey that you've gone on and where it's taken you?
Yeah, I mean, I told you I've set up 3 different brokers, and I can tell you every single time what worked before is not going to work again, right? And so I got to Capital, and you had this mania in 21 and 22 in the markets, and you're trying to start a broker basically from scratch, and you have no idea what you're doing, and you're just trying to figure things out. And one that I knew through a different business that I own, is that social media the penetration here is just through the roof, and especially in certain customer segments. Snapchat is huge for the Emiratis and Saudis, right? Yeah. And so a lot of competition doesn't know this. And so I understood this. I just didn't know how to do this in financial services. So I tried many, many different things. And for months and months, nothing was working. And
what did you try? I'm really interested to dig into those specific. What did you try? How did you think about it?
I mean, I tried with long form videos, 30-minute videos on YouTube, and no one would watch them because we didn't have any brand equity. Why would we listen to some 25-year-old, right? and it really turned around when shorts came and reels came and all of that. And this 30 to 60 second bite-sized kind of information in Arabic, which no one else was doing, all of a sudden we were being pushed like crazy. And from then on, I told them, publish 4 different pieces every single day, which is crazy velocity, right? Plus, answer every DM and every comment, which also no one does, because usually you work 9 to 5 and then in the evening no one does anything, right? And I found some really young, highly energetic people that really wanted to push, and they were answering DMs at 2 a.m. in the morning, and people couldn't believe it. Or they'd leave a really nasty comment, and we would go back and show that this is not correct. And so building a real community where there's trust and where we're not hiding, right? So that then led to last year getting something like 100 million organic views, which, the media value
in financial services. That's crazy, right? Because you have banks around the world spending fortunes on acquisition and paid media, and they get nothing from it. But that's huge.
That's huge views is just vanity metrics, right? But when it starts helping you convert the paid media much better, or so you have loads of wins from this, and in retrospect you now look at this and say, of course I should have done this. The funny thing is, everyone sees what we're doing, but no one has been able to copy this yet, right? And it's been, I have a 3-year kind of head start to these people. And
well, what do you think is the playbook in that? Because not to give away the secret sauce, but I really think in financial services, a lot of people think of it as quite stale, and
if you put someone in a suit in front of a camera and trying to do a 60-second short, it's normally
like, hello, I am so and so, I am the head of blah blah blah.
No, you need to understand the hooks at the beginning, right? And then you need to have someone that is relevant, understands this platform, gives snappy, quick kind of content. And so I guess where I was bold, or I wanted to experiment, was with young people that had no clue, and they were trying to figure it out themselves.
They weren't from the industry.
No,
they were just
weren't.
like love
So
social media.
I had
wanted to do
one.
it.
I had one that was a lifestyle girl,
Okay.
and I had a guy that was personally investing into cryptos,
Yeah.
to all sorts of stuff. But they had no clue. And over the years, they learned and how to do this properly. And we were shooting with a ring light in Cyprus from her bedroom at the beginning. So we did all sorts of
But it's weird
different
that because presumably for them they've got such a skill set, but you just change the topic.
Yes.
And suddenly you take it from lifestyle or whatever, because they know the hooks and the whatever.
Yes.
You stick it in, derivatives trading or whatever.
Yes.
And
they didn't even know this.
Yeah.
They didn't even have big social media followings, but they were willing to just fail and try. And then the great thing with the algorithm, you need to feed the algorithms, right? That's the other thing that many people don't get right. Like if you don't post on a Saturday and a Sunday, the algorithm doesn't care that it's the weekend, right? And if you're not engaging, you just don't get the boost from the algos that you can get if you're really putting stuff behind it. And trying to automate this and bots and all of this, Meta is way too smart for that. So it was a great learning curve, and some wins and lots of losses. And
I think that there's a place to many then great characteristics of a CEO, because you've been willing to experiment with something different. I imagine there was lots of quite stuffy folks who might have said, don't do that, or this is financial services, you shouldn't behave like that.
Even within the same company. If you look at our English channel, which is run from the UK, is run very differently, right? A very different tone of voice, all of that. And, everyone, obviously there's different regulations and stuff, but the content that we produce is very unique. And so you try, you have to try. If you don't try.
What did you say? Because and I know it's like I remember years ago saying I'd sold my business to this company, and I said to them, look, we've got to think about brand building online. And it was a digital agency, and I found it strange. They were saying, no, it doesn't work for B2B sales. It would never be, we're selling to government. It's not interesting. But you still have to have that willingness to push through and actually give it a go and put some resource behind it.
Sometimes I wish I did B2B.
Yeah.
Because B2B marketing, on LinkedIn and on other kind of platforms is so powerful, right? Especially when the founders are talking. B2C is much harder, right? What I do on LinkedIn, I don't expect any clients to convert, even though they are converting and I don't even know about them. But B2C is much, much harder. So but it is very important. If they don't know you and you're hiding, and in my position, to be out there and to push, especially as a regulated financial services firm, because I've got regulatory responsibilities, right? So whatever I say is being put under scrutiny. It's important, but you have to spend time getting this right, because it can go very wrong very quickly too.
I understand. Before we continue with the conversation, a quick break, because I want to tell you about our new series of live workshops where we have a conversation about how to scale and exit or IPO successfully. These are intimate, these are focused, these are very tailored to your questions. I will be hosting them personally. You can learn from my 10 plus years of experience scaling companies to hundreds of millions in revenue and securing exits, even helping to take companies public. If you're interested, you can sign up below. These are only shared with the people who sign up to the link. These are very much behind the scenes where I can share, much more that I can't tell you about here. So click below, sign up to the link, join the workshop, and on with the show. Talk to me about, I think what I know is that, of course, you were semi-professional, professional basket player as well. In that, I always think the analogy between sport and business is quite often used, but in your commitment there to we'll answer every DM, we're gonna post 4 times a day. That's that's the kind of the full court press. Let's go.
Yes.
Like, is that something that you found? Did you find that mentality that you learned as an athlete really translates into what you do now?
Yeah, for most of my part of my life until like 25, I was all about sports, right? I worked for my dad very early on, and I had an interest in business, but sports was all that I cared about. And you don't understand how much it shapes your view of the world when you're growing up, because you're just a kid wanting to play, right? But then when you get to the working world and you start competing with people in the corporate world, you see that all those tenacity and perseverance and resilience and all those kind of things which are natural to you. And, there's no 9 to 5. You just keep going until you get to your goal, right? yes, it has helped me massively, especially in a market. And, when I used to work back in London, people use their elbows. People try and get ahead of you, right? Whereas when you come here, it's a very different kind of environment. It's, you don't have to take the tube. You come to work in an air-conditioned car, and it's much more relaxed. You come maybe a little bit later. I used to be on the desk at 7 a.m. in the morning. Here, people get in at 9:30, right? So, yes, it has helped me massively. And I used and team sport in
I was going to say
general.
as well, because there's some people who are very good at individual sports,
Yes.
and they are the kind of brilliant geniuses, but very hard to work with. Whereas team sport players, I always find those people are the people that you want, because they're not just in it for themselves. And
so I was obviously a team sport player, and I was the captain for most of those years, and so I was the in between the coach and the team, which now I'm the in between the founder and my teams, right? So I can relate to this role, and I've played that role for a very long time. And it helps me massively in setting the vision, in communicating well with the team, in also getting them motivated. That's sometimes, especially with young people, why are you doing something that you're doing? Like, don't just do it for the sake of doing it. You need to understand how you fit into the bigger piece of the puzzle, So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that having been in Dubai, spent time here, you have a lot of people building lifestyle businesses, or people who maybe have gone into the influencer game, but they haven't necessarily built a business. And I think they're kind of playing to play versus playing to win. You see a lot of people kind of here, but they're half working and half not. Whereas what you're describing really is like playing to win. And is how do you instill that in other people? Because I appreciate in you it's natural. You've done it for years, but how do you instill that in a team that and then a scaled company as well? How do you go about doing that?
It's super hard.
Yeah.
It is super hard to find individuals.
And you always want to shake people sometimes. Yes. You're like, come on, let's go. We can do this.
Yes. Very true. It's super
like, I'll
hard.
pick it up tomorrow. You're like, no, now, go.
Speed, urgency, all those kind of things. Yeah. So first of all, you have to lead by example. All the words that you tell them, they don't do anything. But, so the sales team joined, and I spent a week next to them calling clients.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
And once you do that, and they see, oh, he's doing the same job as me, and he beats me on my call times, and he can actually do my job, they all of a sudden say, okay, the KPIs are not crazy
as well. Because you're not sat in a corporate office,
exactly,
passing it down. You're there.
No,
you're hustling on the phones.
Or sorting out payment stuff or support tickets. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
I want everyone to know that I'm able to do your job, and I will work just as hard as you. I come in early in the morning. I will stay there later at night, and I do a lot of work that no one sees. Right? I mean, we're working 24/7.
Yeah.
But so I think that puts me as a leader in front of the team. No one says, oh, this guy just has a title and doesn't do anything, right? And that's, I think, this push mentality, you have to have that mindset. And how do I instill this in others? When I show them what the challenge is and what they can accomplish when they accomplish a couple of these projects, right? Because once you have a few under your belt, your confidence level goes through the roof, right? You start working with a chip on your shoulder. And that's what I am now, in that position after 10 years and trying 3 times, right? But my first brokerage wasn't as successful. Okay, we didn't have much competition, and so we did all right. The second one, I really didn't do that well. And that really humbles you, right? And that's why now experimentation and trying so many different things is a result of that. But if you don't go through all that experience, and I had 10 years of work experience before that, but when someone can't look at that and it's their first time in financial services, first time for an international firm, first time a manager, there's so many firsts that people don't have the experience yet in this region, and they need to build that. And for that, you need to really have a team that communicates well, and where you share stories, and where you encourage people to, it's okay that if you fail, that's, sometimes here, the culture is very like, oh, I don't want to let the boss know that I did something wrong, right? And it's good. I encourage this, so I want an environment where everyone is trying to push, and let them fail. It's not a problem. But if you fail 9 times and the 10th thing works out, especially in financial services, the upside is so huge that you just need to run a lot more experiments.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm zooming out. What I'm kind of curious. We were saying before, there's founders coming here. They're looking. They see Dubai, they see the Gulf, and they think this is the place I should come. But what advice would you give to somebody who is really looking is to scale a regional leader, not just kind of start a lifestyle business? But what would you say to somebody who actually wants to become number one in the industry and go about it playing to win and everything like that?
It can't just be a side business. It can't be, I have a successful business somewhere else and I'm just going to copy it here. That doesn't work. And the Kareem Uber story really shows this, right? Kareem went into really, really tough markets and solved really tough challenges, and Uber just couldn't compete.
Yeah.
And then they bought them, right? So you really have to localize and you have to understand how the market works here to be able to win here. Because
what are some of those nuances? Sorry to jump in, but I found as a someone coming from Europe to here, people are sometimes a bit arrogant, thinking we have this European market. It's like this. I'm coming to this emerging market. They should listen to me.
Yes.
And always fails. But what would you say about some of the nuances to be successful here, unlike other markets?
Yeah, I mean. In our business, for example, in Europe or in the UK, a lot of it is a call center kind of approach, right? Whereas here, no one is going to give you money until they have shaken your hand 3 times, had bread with you and eaten with you and spent a lot of time. But all of a sudden, when that happens, the unlock is 10x, right? So building trust is super, super important. And, I'm from Europe as well. It's the same thing, like this arrogance. And the Americans have this as well, right?
Yeah.
This arrogance doesn't work here. And people that live here look through that very quickly. And they know you're a foreigner and they're not going to do business with you, right? And so building trust and then building the right team and working really, really hard, just like in any other market, will get you there. But people here, because it's so easy to get sidetracked, to live the Dubai life, to do all of that, people don't see it as a... with the same toughness as back home, where you have no choice but to try and swim.
Yeah, no, amazing. And then, so let's say we've got our founder. They've come here. They've scaled something. I'm curious about something that I don't think often talk about is M&A and consolidation and some of those topics as well. Is that something that's a big thing in the market? Do you see that that's something that's going to happen more and more in the MENA region?
Yeah, I think, same as with the angel investing that you talked about earlier, M&A activity is still behind other kind of regions, but the funds are there and people are looking to get into other kind of businesses. When I speak to my lawyer friends, there's ample opportunity out there, and there are deals being done, especially with a lot of family offices getting into the market, and they're still fairly new. But there's a lot of deal flow of people wanting to buy all sorts of different type of businesses because they see the potential upside, right? It works in Dubai. Why doesn't it work? It could work in Saudi as well, and they want to get in early, and So there is a lot happening, and I think 5-10 years down the line we will have very similar activity than in other markets.
And let's talk about the CEO as allocator or investor, because I think what's interesting is you're obviously in industry. We see lots of people allocating capital, investing and so on. And we were saying, sometimes there's a lot of founders of scaling business. They're very enthusiastic, they're very passionate, but they don't necessarily take that bigger picture look of enterprise value and some of those things. Like how do you think of yourself as an allocator and investor, as a CEO, as well as obviously a people manager and a people leader?
Yeah, I mean, growth is my favorite topic.
Okay.
Right. So thinking about growth and thinking about, okay, I have X resource and I need to deploy it and get the most bang for my buck. Right. And so
do you see it, so both being German, do you see it in a very, that rational German money in, money out? Like how do you go about that in reality?
Yeah. I adjusted for the region.
Yeah.
But I definitely look at it like this. And marketing, your lever in marketing, your lever in sales plays huge impact here, right? And marketing dollars can go, and the problem is always the tracking, right? Because you think you're spending there and it is attributed to this resource, but it actually came through organic social media or something, right? So it's a very tough way to track. However, I believe that if you have 8, 9, 10 different channels and money is coming in, you don't really care whether it's 1, 2, or 7 that brought you this, right? So you need to go very wide, and you need to try. Test budgets are there for a reason.
Yeah,
and you need to keep testing. And when something is working, you need to keep doubling down. And there's a lot of. It's surprising, but even within an established industry like us, where we have every competitor under the sun coming to Dubai and competing for the Dubai market, there's so many things that a lot of competitors are not doing. And you ask yourself, why are they not doing this?
Like what, for example?
Yeah, as specific
even
channels within marketing.
Really?
Whether it's programmatic or it's social media or influencers, or there's so many different channels that you could be doing, where people are just, we're going to go to Google, we're going to spend most of our money in Google. Yeah, but everyone else is competing there. Like, you want to get an edge, right? You want to get an advantage. And that edge, finding that edge is where I'm very passionate about. And once you have it, the market has enough scale to really double and triple down. And even though, the UAE is still population-wise not that big, but the wallet size in financial services makes a lot of sense. So it's not so much like Robinhood getting 70 million customers. It's much more, can you find the right kind of customers? And then can you keep them?
And what have you learned about growth? Because I think, working for a family business office is a great place to, learn, and also, perhaps you can try things but obviously, I think as well, you've talked about several iterations of in the thing. But what have you learned about growth maybe that you thought 10 years ago that perhaps now as a more mature CEO, you approach things maybe differently that you did?
I've learned that I don't know anything.
Well, that beginner's mind is often a great thing. I think I've had the same journey where you just think, I've got to experiment and manage risk around different experiments. But
every single year things change, right?
Yeah.
And that's beautiful, because it gives you a chance to, even if you got it wrong a couple of times, it gives you a chance to keep practicing and keep trying. And even if every year you just add one element that then works better, it multiplies massively in growth. And the great thing is, like, for me, I now look after emerging markets as well. So I get to try in Latin America or in Asia, and I get to take pieces from there and try to apply them here, and vice versa.
And what are you learning? That's where I think that global perspective is also really interesting.
Yes, it's very different. What works here, if you look at Dubai, it's very similar to Hong Kong, or it's very similar to Singapore, also from a mentality and investor perspective. But if you look at Germany and Switzerland, it's very different to here. So there's so many learnings that come out of these, but you have to keep trying, right? You have to keep being on the ball and speaking to people on the ground. And then Latin America is, when we think here that trust is important, in Latin America it's so much more important than here.
Really?
Because they have so many scammers, and they have got so many other.
Okay.
So all of these things you just learn, right? And it's fascinating.
That is really interesting. What do you think is the next frontier of growth then? Where are you looking now in terms of thinking about experimenting, thinking about allocating capital and resources?
I mean, I stay firmly within my emerging markets. I think Latin America has great potential. In Africa, there's a couple of really interesting markets. When you look at Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, there's so many interesting markets there, just population-wise, and also from a trading mentality for us. And within the GCC, obviously, Saudi Arabia is an interesting market, and then in Asia. A lot of Indonesia, Malaysia. There's so many different markets that are very, very interesting.
And let's say in 5 years' time, where do you want Capital.com to be in the region? I suppose as well globally, actually, both of the two.
Yeah, I mean, we want to continue increasing our footprint and do that successfully across different verticals, because at the moment we're a very traditional kind of broker, and we want to keep expanding into other kind of products.
Where do you see the growth? Where do you see that the industry's going? Or,
I mean, you talked about neobanks and what they're doing. They're definitely competition. Crypto exchanges are definitely competition, and so we will have to keep evolving our product. equities. You need to have equities options. There's so many different products that you could be adding. The good thing is we have a very good user interface that is easily adaptable to a number of different kind of products. So we're going down in product verticals and then geographic expansion. And then there's really interesting kind of communities, from the Telegram communities to the YouTube communities to Discord to all sorts of different kind of social media platforms that have evolved from just posting a picture to actually engaging on these and maybe even trading from these at some point.
Community build is really interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's, again, in the industry, I appreciate because things are regulated. People are very cautious about trying anything. But I mean, community in many different forms must be, there's some content going on, but then presumably it leads back some way to a product or to a trade or something like that.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting, 3 years ago when I started social media, that was really interesting. But when you look at it now, you look at Twitch. And it's all gamers and it has nothing to do with finance, but why can't it be? Those guys, they're very savvy, invest a lot of money. Or, why does it need to be on Discord or Wall Street Bets and Twitter that conversations need to be have? No broker has really ever tried to build a proper community around it, even though that's the most stickiest part you can wish for, right? And I learned this from the social media part because the amount of DMs and comments that we were getting, it really shows you these are not even clients from us, but they're so invested. And then clients jump in and answer on your behalf. And it's amazing the power of that, because it's public and other people can see those comments. So instead of someone messaging you and you have go 1-to-1, you can have a 1 to 50,000 conversation. So I want to keep going down that path. And I think, authentic content will continue to lead, especially with AI and all of that coming now. There will be this space for authentic, and us as a regulated player, we carry some weight when we talk about something, right? And we're being honest. And I think that tone of voice and how you speak to your clients and respecting them and, all of that stuff is very important. And that as a corporate, a lot of people get wrong. They just look at it as, we want to hide as much contact options as possible. No, we want to go out and speak to them as much as we can.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, you touched on AI there. I know everyone's talking about AI, particularly both in content, but then in process and scaling as well. Like, what role do you said at the beginning, you're thinking now rather than scaling through people, a combination of people and technology in your way. How are you thinking about that, both on the kind of brand building and acquisition side, but also operationally? It's a big question, I know.
Yes, no, but that's almost a question of survival.
Because at the moment, that seems to be the one that I'm talking to firms we're working with, basically saying like, this is the thing. If you can unlock this, then this is going to be, huge differentiator. If you can
all the scale that I want to achieve is hampered if I don't figure out how to automate my processes, how to automate customer support, how to do all of these things at scale, right? So we're investing a lot of time and a lot of engineers into assembling the right APIs and all of that kind of together. And then from a content perspective, I'm a big fan of, I used to work a lot with agencies, and the most frustrating thing is it costs a lot of money and it takes a long time to get to the end result. Yeah. Nowadays, you can just go back and forth with ChatGPT for hours. I created a whole campaign for Dubai Mall that is live there at the moment, just using ChatGPT and 3 days of prompting. So and that's again the same thing with leading by example. If you don't show your staff that it's possible, why would they believe? And now we have a lot more people using it, and productivity gains are through the roof. So that's all very, very important for any business that is out there now.
And what would your advice be, so just to kind of wrap, what would your advice be for a CEO who's coming into the role, who's thinking about maybe their first 90 days, 100 days? What would your advice be to someone starting in a position like that and looking to be successful like you've been?
What I wish I had done is zoom out a little bit and try and look at the bigger picture versus just staying within the weeds. And I think that separates a good CEO from someone that is just operationally there. And so I keep reminding myself that I need to find time to think and find time to organize and find time to speak to people. Where versus my German nature just
go. Let's go.
Just go and
And
solve
do a lot
problems.
of things.
And yes,
Yeah.
That's a constant struggle.
Yeah.
And but if you can manage this, and if you're a very organized person, you should spend more time doing that than just going and building. So I have this analogy, or someone told me, I don't know who it was, but there's this CEO that works 16-hour days and just works really, really hard and achieves his goals. And then there's the CEO that builds a very strong team around him and lets that team operate and is much more successful than this guy, right? And I've always been this guy, and I'm now trying to be this guy and build a really strong team around me. And so for the last 4 or 5 different months, if you look through my posts, I talk about attracting A players and all of that kind of stuff. And it has really been like a mindset shift for me, trying to just step away from the day-to-day and not do everything myself and try and get other people and empower them, and that's hopefully the journey that I'm on now.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, well, thank you so much for joining me, and been great to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And if you did, then you should get on our list, because we will be sharing exclusive behind the scenes. We'll be sharing more content, more materials. We'll also be sharing who are the upcoming guests, so you can prepare for that. You can ask questions, and you can really start to be part of a community. Head below, click the link, join the list, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.